But let me bring in some voices now and legal experts and NCB experts, if I can call him that as well. Avi Singh continues to be with us, lawyer from Supreme Court, and B.V. Kumar, who is the former chief of NCB. Mr. Kumar, we've spoken earlier as well on this matter. I just want to start by saying this. What is your first reaction to what you've just seen? You have been talking about how penalizing people, end users, is the easiest thing perhaps for the bureau to do. The harder stuff is to go after cartels, and in this case, first picking up people and then high profile people, as they say, and then making a case for asking for more arrest. Your first reaction, sir?
Yeah. Ankita, thanks for calling me on the phone. My first reaction was that right from the beginning I've been telling ultimately it would depend upon what evidence was found in the WhatsApp messages, because the NCB has been maintaining that they have WhatsApp messages in which Aryan Khan was allegedly in contact with international drug traffickers for supply in large quantities. Then I was also mentioning that ultimately it will depend on the judge to evaluate this evidence and to what extent it can be relied upon and other things. So probably the detailed order is still not available. My first reaction, and even earlier, my fear was that if any evidence is found, then in that case, denying the bail would be a little difficult. Here, what has happened is the NCB subsequently added certain other sections also in the charge sheet. Particularly, they added section 27A, which talks of financing and also harboring of drug offenses. So that is a serious thing. Then the mental culpable state, that section also they invoked. And then apart from that, in the case of NDPS offences, you cannot grant bail unless, and the provisions of the CRPC, particularly section 439 will not apply, and NDPS Act provisions will have a overriding application. So that being so, I think probably at this stage the judge has denied the bail. But the question is, when we see the detailed order, we can probably know, firstly, what are the grounds on which the bail was denied, and secondly, for how long this bail application would be pending. But then the advantage for the accused youngsters is that they can go to the Bombay High Court and agitate for grant of bail.
Right.
So that is
very important points there, Mr. Kumar, that you're holding out over there. Let me take that legal question to Avi Singh. Avi Singh, the fact that there were no drugs found on him, the fact that there was no money found on him, he was not even on that cruise. The basis of this entire investigation seems to be WhatsApp chats over here. So while we wait for a detailed order to come and see how the judge finally took that call, what are the arguments that he's really gone by, what is your understanding of how this will stand?
You see, this is a very dangerous trend. You pick up someone, as you said, there's no drugs found in him, there's no money found in him. There is no basis then to seize his phone. And the argument of the NCB has been that he handed over his phone voluntarily. There is no such thing as voluntary handing over in a criminal investigation. So you now have you scour through somebody's phone, you find certain chats which may or may not lead to something you did in the last year or 2 years, which may or may not be connected to this, and you basically conduct a character assassination based on WhatsApp chat. If I took anybody's phone today, there may be something there which is perhaps, cast suspicion. But that can't not even indicated in their reply from what I've seen, that this was at all connected to the raid outside the Cornelius. So in a public space, when there was nothing found, that should have been the end of the investigation into this particular individual at least. Anyhow, the last point is NCB has no business rather, conducting raids on end users. Its entire purpose is to be a premier agency which supplements the local police in going after drug traffickers. This is outside their remit. And this is, of course, points to the vindictiveness of this raid and, of course, of the, I wouldn't even call it prosecution, but the persecution that is going on of these young men for whatever ulterior reason they may have been. The disappointment is that if the courts don't step in, today anybody can be arrested as was pointed out by a reporter, and held for a considerable period of time. We can't keep depending on the higher courts to step in and stop these travesties of justice.